The evening air outside the shopping center carried a chill that cut straight through coats and hurried footsteps. Shoppers moved quickly, their arms loaded with glossy bags, laughter spilling into the night like music. Neon lights painted the pavement in shifting colors, but for Daniel, the world seemed to blur the instant his eyes landed on a figure near the entrance. His breath caught. Huddled against the cold concrete, wrapped in a tattered blanket, sat a young woman with her head bowed low, a cardboard sign trembling in her hands. The letters scrawled across it were simple, desperate, hungry. Please help. He might have walked past like everyone else, but something about her posture, the curve of her face beneath the dirt and shadows, pierced through the fog of time. Then recognition struck him like a blow. It was Elena. The same Elena who had once filled his life with light, the woman he had loved so deeply years ago. The one who had disappeared without a single goodbye, leaving his heart aching with unanswered questions. She had left chasing dreams, chasing freedom, or so he thought. But the truth stood before him now, not in bright lights or success, but in brokenness, on the cold ground outside a mall. His pulse raced as memories flooded back, the sound of her laughter, the promises whispered under the stars, the sudden silence that had followed her absence. People hurried past without noticing her, without caring, but Daniel couldn't move. His heart pounded in his ears as her eyes lifted briefly and met his. Recognition flickered, then shame filled her gaze, and she quickly looked away. For Daniel, the world had stopped. Fate had brought them face to face, but why, and what now? Daniel's legs felt weak as he stepped forward, the cold air suddenly heavy with questions that had haunted him for years. He crouched down, his voice trembling, almost afraid of the answer. Elena, is it really you? She flinched at the sound of her name, clutching the blanket tighter around her frail body. Her lips quivered as she whispered, "Don't. Please, don't look at me like this." His chest tightened, anger and sorrow battling inside him. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Why did you leave without a word? Why disappear and let me wonder if you were alive?" His words spilled out, not harsh but aching. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment she couldn't breathe. Finally, in a voice as fragile as shattered glass, she confessed, "I thought leaving was mercy. I was chasing dreams that turned into mistakes. And when it all crumbled, shame wrapped around me like chains. I couldn't face you, not when I had nothing left." Daniel swallowed hard, his heart aching at the woman before him, not the girl he remembered, but someone broken by life's storms. People passing by stole curious glances, but to him, the world had narrowed to this moment. "Come with me," he urged softly, extending his hand. Elena shook her head fiercely, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No. I don't deserve your pity." He leaned closer, his own eyes glistening. "It's not pity, Elena, it's love. Even after everything, it's still love." Her resolve wavered, her sobs echoing against the cold walls. For the first time in years, the wall she had built around her heart cracked, letting through a glimmer of the connection they once shared, fragile, but alive. Elena's hands trembled as she tried to hide her face, but Daniel gently lifted her chin, forcing her eyes to meet his. In those tired, tear-streaked eyes, he no longer saw just the girl who left, he saw the weight of battles fought alone, the scars of mistakes, and the aching loneliness she carried. His heart broke not out of anger, but out of compassion. Snowflakes began to fall, their soft descent contrasting the storm inside them both. Daniel removed his scarf and wrapped it around her shoulders, ignoring her protests. "You don't have to stay here," he whispered. "Let me help you find warmth again." Her lips quivered. I've lost everything, Daniel. My family doesn't speak to me, my dreams turn to dust, and I don't even recognize myself anymore. I'm not the woman you loved. He shook his head gently. No, you're still her. You're just carrying too much pain. And no one should carry it alone. Elena's tears fell harder as memories flashed, the laughter, the love, the promises of a forever she had once believed in. For a moment, she wanted to run, to vanish again into the crowd. But the sincerity in Daniel's eyes rooted her to the ground. Why? She whispered through her sobs. Why would you still care after what I did to you? Daniel's voice was steady, though his eyes glistened. Because love doesn't keep score. Because I believe in second chances. And because walking away from you once was the hardest pain of my life. I won't let it happen again. Elena's lips trembled as she gripped his hand, torn between fear and hope. For the first time in years, she felt a flicker of something she thought she had lost forever, the possibility of redemption. Daniel guided Elena to a nearby cafe, its warm glow spilling onto the snowy street. The smell of coffee and baked bread wrapped around them as they stepped inside. Heads turned, a man in a crisp coat and a woman in torn clothes, bound by something invisible yet undeniable. Daniel ordered food, but Elena hesitated, shrinking into herself, afraid of stares, of judgment. When the waiter placed a steaming bowl of soup before her, she froze. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "It's been weeks since I had a hot meal." She clutched the spoon with trembling hands, each bite melting years of hunger and pride. Daniel watched silently, his heart aching not with pity, but gratitude. Grateful she was alive, sitting before him, still within reach. Across the table, Elena finally spoke, her voice fragile but steady. Do you know the hardest part of being out there? It's not the cold. It's the invisibility. People look through you, like you're already gone. Her words pierced the quiet air, and Daniel felt his throat tighten. You're not invisible to me, he said softly. You never were. Elena broke down, the weight of years crashing through her chest. For the first time in forever, she let someone see her, not as a failure, not as a shadow, but as a soul longing to be remembered. Daniel reached across the table, clasping her hand firmly. In that cafe, with snow falling outside and warmth finally touching her heart, Elena felt something stir again, dignity, fragile but alive. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, she was not beyond saving. Days turned into weeks, and what began as a single act of compassion became a journey of healing. Daniel helped Elena find shelter, walked with her through difficult nights, and reminded her of the strength she had forgotten. Slowly, her spirit rekindled. With clean clothes, a steady place to sleep, and someone who believed in her, Elena's posture changed, from hunched shame to quiet dignity. One morning, Daniel invited her to a small community hall. Nervous, Elena stepped inside, only to find people gathered for a charity event. At the front, Daniel introduced her, not as someone broken, but as someone brave. This is Elena, he said, his voice filled with honor. She taught me that kindness can survive even the hardest winters. The room filled with applause. Tears spilled down Elena's cheeks, but this time they weren't born of shame. They were tears of renewal. For the first time, she felt seen not as a beggar, not as a mistake, but as a human being worthy of love and respect. Later that night, as they walked under the quiet snowfall, Elena whispered, I thought losing everything was the end of my story. But you showed me it can be the beginning. Daniel smiled, slipping his arm around her shoulders. Sometimes, he said softly, the people we think are lost come back to teach us what love truly means. Under the falling snow, two souls who had once been torn apart found their way back, not in the same way as before, but in a deeper, kinder, and unshakable bond. Their story was no longer about loss. It was about redemption, second chances, and the gentle impact of love that refused to let go.